Will I be able to beat the entirety of Red Dead Redemption 2's third chapter without beating it? All I have to do is fail each mission checkpoint 3 times, ideally in hilarious fashion, and I'm allowed to skip it. If you've been following the series, you know I'm using the same rules and scoring system as before. If you haven't seen the previous 2 episodes, what are you doing with your life? There's a link to a playlist in the description where you can go check those out. Let's get into it.
This is awful!
What's good, everybody? We open the game's third chapter in the deep south of Lemoyne, at the lakefront campsite of Clemens Point. You can tell we're in the deep south in 1899 because characters say things like this.
Progress is a dirty word in these parts, unlike incest.
Excuse me?
Following the tragic events of Chapter 2 where I lost my horse, Epic Fail, may he rest in peace, the cast of Parks and Recreation put together a musical number in his honor. It was a touching tribute, to be sure, but it's awkward because the horse's name wasn't Sebastian. A social faux pas for many, but it's on brand with Andy Dwyer's character. Speaking of horses, there's a point of emphasis in this chapter to protect horses at all costs. The first mission starts, and I'm happy to report that we've had, 0 missions without a horse-related accident. The premise of this mission was Dutch and Hosea wanted to take me fishing, but things get sidetracked when we notice Josiah in the back of a prison wagon. We converse with the sheriff for a while, and some prisoners escape. I'm told to track them down with a sheriff's deputy whom I can confidently say missed his calling in life. He should have been an overbearing mother-in-law instead of a deputy.
Let's go after that train! Keep us close to the train. Why are we stopped? Keep your guns holstered. We need them Anderson boys alive. Gosh darn it, why did I let you ride? Put that gun away now!
He goes as far as to ask a citizen he met 2 minutes ago to do his police work for him.
Come on, Mr. Callahan, I'm relying on you.
Did you know that in America, there are reports of cops standing around while crimes are committed?
I'm right out here if you need me.
Rockstar's attention to detail in this game is unmatched. I refuse to do his job for him, and the Anderson boys get away. I skip ahead to taking the prisoners into town.
Well done, and a pat on the back for me for stopping the train. Load Anders onto the back of your horse. There you go. You are a natural.
This man is giving me passive-aggressive compliments in the workplace, and my HR rep says there's a zero-tolerance policy for workplace violence. I attempt to reconcile our differences in a professional manner, but mistakes were made. There, that's better. Good thing horse safety is a point of emphasis this time around, otherwise I shudder to think what would happen. I meet up with Dutch and Hosea, and they again try to get me to go fishing. Obviously, I declined because of the nature of a run like this, but Hosea didn't get the memo that we were filming a fails-only run that day, and he gets super offended. He throws a hissy fit, and an innocent bystander pays the price.
Hell!
I returned to camp to find Shady and Pearson flirting with each other.
You come near me, sailor, and I'll slice you up.
You put that knife down or you could be missing a hand!
I decide it's best to take Shady into town for supplies, otherwise the two might make a baby, and the gang already has too many mouths to feed as it is. We get distracted by the quality of Pearson's letter writing skills, so we decide to read his letter aloud to the entire camp.
I am still yet to take a wife, but I can assure you it's not for a lack of suitors. You ever actually even talk to a woman he ain't paid for?
We arrive in Rhodes, and I take it upon myself to teach Shady how a real man bargains to get the best price available. To my surprise, the staff do not appreciate my bargaining skills and give Shady a hard time when she tries to tip them.
Take that for yourself, okay?
Thanks.
Well, give it back then. Jesus.
As I'm thinking about how sad it is that no one knows how to take compliments these days, my hand slips and my knife lodges itself in this man's throat. It's truly inconceivable. Sadie and I get jumped by a group of Boy Scouts trying to sell us popcorn on the way back. I spring into action and tell them I'm watching my salt intake, and Sadie leaves me all alone. She clearly does not want me to have a balanced diet, which is both hurtful and demeaning. Dutch had asked me earlier to see what I could find out about the Gray family. They're one of 2 prominent families in this region, and you can tell this family has enough money to not live in the real world because I meet this guy named Beau, and he seems like the type of person who writes poems when he's sad.
She's like Tomorrow, if tomorrow turns out fine.
I decided to give him some inspiration for his next great literary undertaking. Artistic muses aside, he asked me to deliver a gift to his girlfriend Penelope, who is a member of the only other family that matters in this part of the country, the Braithwaite family. Beau can't deliver the message himself because he's a pussy, because the two families hate each other and would rather kill their children than see two of them get together. I sense tension between the two families is high, so I sure hope Beau's gift will smooth things over. Wow, maybe Beau has more game with the ladies than I thought. I'm definitely going to try giving girls dynamite instead of the clap at the next church social. I meet Dutch and Bill at the sheriff's office, and we go investigate a moonshine still in the swamp. On the way there, I get to do my best Hosea impression and listen to some classic hypocrisy.
Sheriff Gray believes the law should keep the law.
Come on, Mr. Callahan, I'm relying on you.
I'm so taken aback by this that I drive erratically and crash the wagon. Once we arrive at the still, I blow our cover as quickly as possible, which should come as a surprise to no one at this point. I'm about to do my best to keep this a dry county when that stupid fly from Chapter 2 shows up, and this isn't a scoring sequence, but I found it amusing that you can harass Dutch and Bill on their way back to camp if you decline Dutch's offer to race. I gotta be honest, I wasn't paying attention to the details of the next mission, so I thought the point was to cure Uncle's back pain. Turns out, the wagon I spooked was the objective all along. We rob it, and we're forced to run for our lives. We find a barn to hide in, but the law catches up to us, and we scatter into the woods. I lose the gang during the escape, thinking this would be an effective way to evade the law, but the game disagrees. This is in spite of Arthur's directions to the group when the mission ends.
Go on, get out of here. Every man split up. Go on, run quick.
The next day, I follow up with Beau to see if he's written any new poems. He hasn't, but he tells me Penelope is joining a march through Rhodes in support of women's voting rights. Beau and I roll up, and I'm asked to drive the protest wagon. I decide to do so in a manner that best symbolizes this town and its lack of progress. Backwards.
This is what happens when you hire a man for a woman's job.
The protest is going well until Beau's cousins show up. I escort the group of them behind the building so they can respectfully work out their differences, and, in what was deemed a scene with graphic violence too intense for television, Beau's cousin rips up Beau's book of poems. This senseless act shocks me to my core, and I resort to my go-to coping mechanism, which is treating groups of elderly women like bowling pins.
Join with me.
This is awful.
Nobody died.
I meet up with Lenny after I finish at the bowling alley. He says there's a gang setting on a stash of weapons and dynamite in the swamp. We go check it out. Our plan works perfectly, and the dynamite wagon was ours for the taking.
Hey, this could be promise.
I decided the goods were too flammable to be transported back to camp in their current condition, so I tried soaking them in water before making the trip back. Hosea hatched a brilliant plan to sell the moonshine we stole earlier back to the Braithwaites. Except in this run, the wagon didn't exactly make it back to camp in one piece, but I'm choosing to overlook that for the sake of continuity. I'm so impressed by Hosea's brilliance, and I want him to be proud of me, so naturally, I drive like he does on the way to Braithwaite Manor.
You idiot!
Catherine directs us to give the moonshine away for free in the Rhodes Saloon. We go there, and I'm confronted with what I thought would be the first major challenge of this chapter, which is pouring drinks for the bar patrons. But it turns out this is another interactive cutscene similar to carrying John up the hill in Chapter 1. The game gives you the option to participate by pouring drinks, but if you don't do anything, the mission will still progress, as Fenton will pour the drinks all on his own. So, no points are awarded or deducted for this sequence. And side note, we actually see a few more instances of this as the chapter progresses, one of them being hiding in the wagon during the Burning the Gray's Tobacco Fields mission, and the other one being walking through town with Bill, Micah, and Sean in one of the chapter's final missions. Back to the present day, I finish pouring the drinks and a tornado drill is declared. Tornado safety is serious, and to properly complete a drill, participants must go into an interior hallway and tuck their heads between their knees while kneeling at the base of a wall. I notice the people aren't doing the drill correctly, so I encourage their cooperation for, safety reasons. Seriously, doing these drills in school was the worst. Teachers made us stay in that position for way too long while they walked around feeling good about how prepared we would be for a tornado to blow through the halls. Hosea and I made our escape, probably because he knows how to do a tornado drill correctly. What a cool guy.
That was fun, Finn.
I meet up with Hosea again the next day. This time, he sends me on a mission with Sean to burn the Gray's tobacco fields. I become the first player in the history of the game to fail a mission for attacking a house? Night falls, and Sean and I begin our assault. He gives a guy a nasty cut, and I pour moonshine on him to ease his suffering. There's some goofy stuff that happens during this escape sequence. I find there's a guard that refuses to attack me for some reason. I discover I'm able to ride really far away from Sean, and it won't trigger a failure condition. I went out east to the river where this boat randomly sank, and I also rode out west to Blackwater, where it was the law that eventually killed me. Dutch asked me to take Charles to talk with Josiah about the bounty hunters who are supposedly after us. We arrive at his house to find he's been kidnapped, and I'm worried for his safety, but not as worried as I am about what's happening to this deer over here. We catch up to his kidnappers, only to discover they have terrible aim. We fail to eliminate his kidnappers, and I make sure Josiah feels inferior for getting kidnapped by common peasants. Stealing the Braithwaite horses does not result in any unique scoring opportunities. Highlights of this mission including getting kicked by a horse and engaging in some strong-arm negotiation tactics with the person who undercuts us on the price of the horses. Josiah makes a quick recovery, and now he wants to take me with him to rob a stagecoach. We get a little lost on our way to Rhodes before encountering the first snag in this chapter. This mission has a feature similar to what we saw during the Valentine shootout in Chapter 2, where no matter how many times I fail an objective, I never get the option to skip the checkpoint. In the last chapter, it sort of made sense, because that was a major turning point that moves the story forward. Here, all I have to do is hitch a horse and go inside the post office to get the tip for the robbery. I guess Rockstar decided this moment was vital to Arthur's character development and therefore chose to not give players the option to skip it. The reality is, the only thing that develops Arthur's character in this mission is when he's forced to endure this woman's awful singing. Okay, never mind. He decided it was too awful and ruined their day. I also found out the wagon will air quotes, escape, even if you follow it all the way into town. At the start of the next mission, I learn Thomas Downs has died. I get the news and immediately think, yeah, I know, I shot him in the last episode. Were you not paying attention? Leopold asked me to go recover the debt from his family, but before I do that, I rob the Valentine Bank with Karen, Bill, and Lenny. I decide it's best to go loud, and I fail the mission for alerting the law to our presence. It turns out to be a stupid decision, as we surely would have done the mission in perfect stealth had I not messed up, right?
Sorry.
I guess not. Turns out my fellow gang members learned to shoot from the same people who kidnapped Josiah. We failed to escape Valentine, then I failed the part of the mission where I'm supposed to go to the Downs Ranch because I returned to Valentine. I thought this was interesting because most of the time I fail an objective because I abandoned something. This is the only time I recall failing an objective because I went somewhere. There are only 4 missions left in this chapter. It's been clean so far, with the only objective I've been forced to beat was one where the game didn't give me an opportunity to skip it for whatever reason. I haven't needed to use my lifeline either, so of course, a mission had to come along to ruin my chance at what would have been a basically perfect chapter. I'm talking, of course, about the mission where Dutch and Combe meet under the guise of settling their differences.
They want a parley? It's a trap!
As a precaution, I take a strategic position in a vantage point high above the meeting location.
You're meant to be looking out for us.
But of course, things still go wrong, and I get captured. This is where things go sideways, as none of the buttons on the controller work for the next 2 sections, except the ones the game intends for you to press. So I'm forced to stand up to get away from the O'Driscolls, and I'm forced to free myself and cauterize my wound before proceeding. In both instances, I tried waiting to see if something would happen without taking action, but nothing did. Since the left on the D-pad doesn't work in these sections, I can't even use my lifeline of abandoning the objective. Thankfully, it's easy enough to fail the actual escape sequence and move on to the next mission. The next 2 missions are my favorite sequence in the entire game. I'm in such a rush to get them started, I don't even notice the bounty hunters waiting in the woods. I lead the law to camp and get my second free roam failure in as many videos. Nice! Once a short walk in a pretty town starts, there's no way to fail the part where the group is walking through town, but no points are deducted because Arthur moves forward on his own. Sean, unfortunately, takes the intent of this challenge way too seriously and fails a checkpoint permanently. R.I.P. to everyone's favorite leprechaun. I do my best to get my other gang members injured despite Micah's confidence.
This is you and me, Morgan. We always get the job done.
And don't think for a moment that I forgot about that little stunt that Bill pulled during the camp donation video when he tried to steal from the camp lockbox. We make it back to camp to learn that Jack has been kidnapped. We assume the Braithwaites are responsible, so we go to torch their house in what is perhaps the best mission in the game. I have one objective, and one objective only in mind as this mission begins. Arthur? Burn. I get a little too excited and burn some allies that weren't meant to be burned, and I close out the mission by reenacting the "This is fine" meme in the Braithwaite dining room. Now that we've caused all kinds of trouble, the gang has to move locations again. John and I go to clear out the house that Lenny and I stole from earlier in the chapter. As we're disposing of the bodies in the swamp, I try to get eaten by an alligator, but the big guy can't shut up about how he's on the keto diet long enough to eat me.
Just dump it in the water.
The gang arrives and Dutch says he wants to tell me something. Turns out he's also on the keto diet. I've heard enough, so I commit several acts of aggression toward him as the chapter closes.
Ready and... Jerry! God, gross. Jerry!
I think he might be having a heart attack.
Oh, jeez, did a dinosaur just fart? Jerry, get a grip.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, apology not accepted.
Before I wrap up the video, I want to backtrack to Chapter 2 for a moment. I thought it would help me fail some of the objectives that gave me trouble if I poisoned Arthur. I tried Oleander Sage first, and, sure enough, I was able to fail the objective of going outside by poisoning myself inside the hotel. The downside to this method is your body grows accustomed to the effects of eating plants if you consume too many in too short of a time frame. This makes sense to me if eating the plant is beneficial, but when it's poison? Since when does consuming more poison make the poison less poisonous? That is more Rockstar logic for you. At any rate, this method works as long as you wait long enough between eating the oleander. I waited 48 minutes between doses in my case, which means failing the objective 3 times in this manner takes nearly an hour and 40 minutes. I tried getting bitten by a snake to see if that was faster, but the effects of the poison wore off before I could even get back to camp to start the mission. And furthermore, the poison wasn't strong enough to kill me anyway. The oleander method does not apply to buying the horse since I can't open my satchel, so I still had to clear that checkpoint. It also doesn't apply to donating the debt money to the camp lockbox, because even though I died, I didn't get an option to skip that objective. It also doesn't help with the Lenny section because I can't access my satchel, but what I am able to do is move my lifeline from leaving the hotel to the Finding Lenny section. So in hindsight, my score for Chapter 2 is 20 points higher than before. Unfortunately, I can't retro this method back to Chapter 1 since Oleander doesn't grow around Coulter, and escaping the mountains prior to Chapter 2 requires the use of cheats and/or glitches. Even though I didn't get to use the Oleander method in Chapter 3, it may still be of some use in the future. Time will tell.
Stay here with us. Oh, they ain't so bad.
That's all for today. Check the end screen for suggested videos if you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and until next time, make it count.